You're listening to Northwoods Church Matters, a podcast of Northwoods Church in Evansville, Indiana, where we discuss why the local church matters and things that matter to the local church. I'm your host, Matt Higgins. Hey, welcome back to the Northwoods Church Matters podcast. I'm here with one of our lay elders, Fred Harris, and we are going to be going one by one, interviewing all of our elders for the Stories podcast, and Fred is number one.
I take that as a privilege.
That is a privilege. Yes. Also, you're retired. So.
I'm retired, so I always fit the mold as far as time-wise.
Right, and Linda's usually trying to get you out of the house, right?
Absolutely not.
Oh, we're going to have some fun today.
Yes, we are.
Yes. So, Fred, where did you grow up?
I was born in Kentucky, which is across the river, as you know.
Where in Kentucky?
Between Allegheny and Elkton. Unless you're familiar with that area, it's unknown.
Just over yonder.
Just over yonder.
Did you wear overalls?
No, I just wear a bib. Actually, I lived there about 6 months, and my parents decided to try to go to the big city. And as far north as they got was Evansville, Indiana. So I've been here ever since.
So what do you remember from childhood?
I grew up in the 50s and the 60s. So there was the Vietnam War. There was the Cuban Missile Crisis, all kinds of different things going on. But I didn't worry about those things. I never knew about them really until I studied later. But my thought process was always outside playing. Mm-hmm. Outside playing. And the word that I want to use is neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
We always had a neighborhood. And it wasn't just across the street or next door. It was neighborhood, blocks and blocks. We just knew people and kids around the neighborhood. So hanging out with the guys and playing ball, any kind of ball. It's baseball, football. And when the lights came on from the street lights, that's when Mom wanted us home. And we'd go home after the street lights were on, and the kids all knew, so that everybody left. After supper, my older sister and I would go out on a swing set my dad made, and we'd just swing and we'd sing songs. We'd make up voices. We'd sing songs like I Found a Peanut. I don't know if anybody knows that song. That's probably really dated me. Or Little Space Girl. I've had just a normal childhood.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
3 sisters and 2 brothers. So it's a big family, but it's kind of split family. My older sister and then about 7 years later, then the family started coming. By that time, I was pretty much out of the house.
So you were older in birth order?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Did you pick on your brothers and sisters?
No. I just let them be. I'm just a real nice guy. I can't tell you all the secrets. Okay.
Yeah. So what was your first experience with church?
My grandmother and my mom took me to church. My dad didn't go. My grandmother lived with us because my grandfather passed away early in life. My dad had always taught us to be very attentive, and so I was very strict, very well-mannered, hair cut, shoes shine, the whole 9 yards. You didn't misbehave in church, let me tell you.
Mm-hmm. What happened if you misbehaved in church?
Mom would tell Dad and then trouble, so you always want to avoid trouble from Dad.
Mom turns it over to Dad.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the only experiences I had in church was just going, not really paying too much attention.
Yeah. Thinking about when can I get out and play baseball.
When can I get out and play baseball.
Do you remember what church you went to when you
I went to Covert Avenue Baptist Church, a little small church in Covert Avenue.
What were you like as a teenager, Fred?
Oh, I was so full of insecurities, and I was so full of bravado.
Was the bravado covering the insecurity?
Right, I guess so. I was a type that thought I was better than what I knew that I was. Mm-hmm. I had friends, and they all looked up to me, and I had an ability to I don't want to say manipulate, but sometimes I could do that. It was all fake. People would come up and say, you're really good at this. I would know that I was really not.
What crowd did you run with in high school? Were you jocks?
Jock wannabes. Uh-huh. Guys that didn't quite make it in school. I was more of an intramural.
Not on the pro track.
Not on the pro track. I tried out for baseball, and they all really liked me, and they said, well, it's great. He can hit the ball, but he just doesn't hit it often enough.
How did you come into a relationship with Jesus?
Oh, that's an easy one. But the backdrop is more difficult.
Okay.
You come into a relationship with Christ by accepting him, by repenting of your sins, and then calling upon him, and you need him, and he's the only way. And you say yes to him. That's kind of what I did at 10 years old. But the backdrop is that I used to go to my other grandparents' house in Kentucky every summer.
Mm.
My mom and dad would take us down there, and we'd spend the whole summer down there. They got a break from us, and we got to work free labor down in Kentucky at the farm. And those were great times. But one year when I was 10 years old, I was starting to experience things like, what is eternity? As a 10-year-old, you're like, I don't know what eternity is. And it sort of like blows your mind. And when you try to put it in perspective and you go like, living forever? What does that look like? Where? Heaven? Hell? I think God was working on me at that point in time. And then in September of 1961, we went back home after the vacation, went to church. Emmer Morris was preaching. I think he was preaching out of James 4, 7, and 8, talking about submitting yourself to the Lord and resisting the devil and he'll flee and drawing nigh to God. I just went forward and I said, I need Jesus. And here's what I've done. Not a whole lot, but in 10 years, but I accepted Christ as my personal Savior. From that point on, it was a growing, and still is a growing process.
Yeah.
I had an uncle that lived down in Kentucky, and he'd take me to church in Kentucky. My grandparents down there didn't go. But when he'd take me to church, he would always say, what'd you think of the sermon? Well, let's discuss what happened. And so I called him immediately, called him up and said, hey, I got saved. And whoa, and it was big time then. Now I can really talk about what the scriptures means. But it was a time where I wanted to tell everybody and share with everybody. My friends and all the neighborhood, they knew that I got saved. And as time wore on, there was moments of disappointment whenever you allow Satan to sift you a little bit. I can remember a time when I was a teenager and there was a Bill Glass crusade. Now, Bill Glass was a professional football player. I think he played for Cleveland Indians, and he turned revivalist, evangelist. And he had a revival here in Evansville at the Roberts Stadium, and they were seeking counselors, and I volunteered to be a counselor and went through the training. After we went through the training, the first night of the event, called for counselors, and I was ready to go. And I went down forward, and I was standing beside these people, and then they ushered us in the back room, and then I had a gentleman. Now, again, you have to remember this is the Vietnam War era, and a young guy, about 18 years old, and he had a problem with, what does the Bible say about thou shalt not kill? Well, my spiritual level of maturity at that time was very, very little. So trying to understand thou shalt not kill, I could not help that young man. And I had to turn him over to another counselor. At that point in time, Satan then jumps in there and says, hey, again, you're not as good as you think you are.
Oh, yeah.
So the next night was bring your youth to the revival. I brought a bunch of my buddies and friends, and my soon-to-be wife later on in life, Linda, was with us. And I sat there, and Satan was starting to really push my buttons. And then the call came, hey, we need extra youth counselors. And I made the decision that I was not going to go. That's another little turning point in my life because it was such a devastating failure, a failure to respond to the Spirit of God. And you learn from things like that.
You said you struggled with having a facade and insecurities. Did Jesus help you with those things?
After much study and much progressive growth, you realize that you can't do anything without him. There's nothing that you can do. You have to rely on him totally. And then he points out to you when your ego starts getting a little too big, when you think you're more than you are. I always tell my kids, I'm humble enough to know when I'm great, but I'm not. It's him and me. There's nothing I can do. I can't save anybody. I can't do anything other than just live a life for him. So that's how he's helped me in growing in those areas of my life. I've allowed him to use me many times. Like you said, I'm the eldest of the elders. So.
The eldest of the elders.
Right. So,
how did you meet your wife, Linda?
My dad used to do some odd and end jobs around the neighborhood, and one of them was tearing down a burnt garage of a man by the name of Paul King and Laverne King, and that happens to be my mother-in-law and father-in-law, but didn't know that at the time. So we were out there tearing down this garage, and I was a freshman in high school, and there was a little girl in the house, and she brought out some water. She was a little 8th grader. And she brought out some water, and unbeknownst to me, that was Linda. And I didn't know that at the time. But then as time went on, I became a sophomore in high school, and she was a freshman. And being from the neighborhood, we all kind of hung out together. She was always there. And I don't know exactly when it happened, but I think she was stalking me. Yeah. I think
because you were good looking.
Because I was the bomb.
You were
that. I was it. And she would always be around me at that time, be watching me play. So it was like a dance, a total dance, where the girls asked the boys.
Like a Sadie Hawkins
Yeah,
dance?
sort of like that. And I said yes to her when she asked me. And so we had it all planned out, but then she got sick. And
Oh, no.
yeah. So, but it's probably the best thing in the world that she stalked me, because it's the best thing in my life. It was her.
That's awesome. So after you became a Christian, what was your greatest life struggle?
I struggled with being able to overcome some fears, some insecurities. My dad was not really a top-of-the-line dad. Alcohol was his issue, and I had some struggles with him and forgiveness, and I had some struggles that impacted the whole family. Was at the time that he was in a motorcycle accident, and when I was just about to get married, we had the date all set and invitations made, and he went out going back home to his mom's home in Kentucky, and he had an accident with a motorcycle and a semi. And I remember the time that we had the call, and I gave the call to my mom, and she was repeating the words back as she heard them, and near death, brain injury. That was a big struggle for me, because then the only where I could go was I went to the front bedroom and fell on my knees and started praying. Unbeknownst to me, my mom had come back in before we left to go to Madisonville to the hospital, and she saw me praying, and that helped her. So from that point on, I was like, I want to be able to use my faith to be able to help and to lead people and to guide people. I don't know if it was a call or a purpose. There had to be something more to this life than me just getting up and going to work, getting married and going to work and having a family, and just there's had to be more. So I think that's some of my biggest struggles has been that, and knowing exactly where God wants me.
Yeah. So where did you work when you got to working age?
Oh, I worked all over. Well, when I got to working age, I worked at a chicken place, and then I worked at a manufacturing, George Cook & Sons, which was a sheet metal place, and I worked there for a little while. And then I also worked at where my dad used to work at, which was a Colonial Baking Company. Used to be called Honeycrust. And so I worked there for my first years of marriage, and I always had the ability to have people get me jobs.
That's a good ability.
That's a great ability. But anyway,
I'm not sure if that's a spiritual gift.
I know it's not a gift, but it is a blessing.
Yeah.
So I've never really been without a job for very long at all. But I went to work for Keebler Company as a truck driver, and from there went to management, and then 35 years later in management, retired from there.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine people working for one place long anymore.
I know. That was really tough.
People switch jobs a lot nowadays. No, you don't hear about hardly
they put
anybody.
Up with me. They let me work and everything. They asked me if I wanted to leave. 2 times, but I said no. So.
Do I still get money if I leave?
No, and they said no.
No, well then I guess I'm going to stick around.
I had a great life with the company, and then of course it was bought out and larger companies, and the culture changed with larger companies, and so it was time for me to move on.
How do you be a good Christian in the workplace?
You have to recognize when you're wrong, when you failed. You can stand up in front of your employees and you can tell them, but if you don't show what you're speaking, they know, and they're always looking for it. They're always looking for that. Did you make a mistake? And I found that whenever I did make a mistake, Spirit would let me know, and then I would have to confess and then go back to them and apologize and ask for forgiveness. I've had truck drivers come in, and I've gotten angry with them for various reasons, whether the pressures of the day or whatever. And then as soon as I go back in my office and sit down, God's Spirit would say, you didn't handle that quite right. Your attitude was wrong. And then you apologize, and some of them are like, what are you apologizing to me for? Because they don't really know.
Right.
But at least I did what God wanted me to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I apologized to him, and we move on.
Yeah.
So that's how I can try to handle my work life.
Yeah.
Just being as honest with them as I could.
Yeah. Tell me about your kids.
Kids. Oh, I've got 3. I've got Amy, who is now in Georgia. She took my grandkids away. I will not say I will forgive her, but I will not understand because I am always been in Evansville. Anyway.
Well, especially the Atlanta area. I mean, the traffic there is just awful.
But anyway, she married a great guy named Joe, and they moved to better opportunities in Atlanta. And then I had a son. His name was Scott, and he passed away when he was 43. He had some drug problems, some issues with alcohol and drugs, and his life was not the smoothest. And then I have Melody, who is my youngest, who is a therapist and helps me out a lot. So,
and then she has one child.
And then she has one child that I kind of joke with her because Northwoods, she went forward one Sunday and I went down with her and I said, what can I pray with you for? And she said, I want a baby. And I said, okay, like Hannah. So we prayed that God would give her a child. And then there she was. There was Cooper. There was Cooper. So he has a special spot in my heart for that reason and for the reason that he got to help me through retirement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you retire and you don't know really if you really wanted to retire.
What do I do with myself?
What do you do? Right. Who are you? So when I retired, I had Cooper and we was able to take care of him and I was able to put into him things that I was not able to put into my own son.
Yeah. A lot of people in our congregation, they're your age and they have grandkids.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do you be a godly grandparent?
You let them have a lot of candy. You let them
stay up too late.
You're not as strict, I don't guess.
Yeah.
But I still, when I was teaching Cooper, it was you put into him your experiences.
Mm.
You share with them what it means. Even with Ryan, Ryan's my oldest grandson. He's now with the EPD, and I'm so proud of him. You put into him what you have experienced yourself and all the things where you failed.
Mm.
So you enlighten them on those areas. Be aware of this. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but just be aware of this. You know, be in church, study the scriptures, and that's how you kind of raise your grandchildren. And then you just love them.
Yeah.
And you just love them to death.
And you provide advice to your kids as parents as well?
Yeah. Well, they don't listen to that kind of advice.
But they come and ask things.
They come and ask things, yeah.
Yeah.
No, my kids are great. They put up with me because I have been known to be a little bit of a character.
What's it like having a grandkid that's a first responder?
Nervous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Being a police officer is difficult.
Yeah. Can be dangerous.
Could be very dangerous. At times, it can become callous.
Mm.
So you're always praying for a softer heart and a spirit of servanthood. Because that's the reason why they become police officers in the first place, is to help people and serve. So you constantly pray for that and for his safekeeping.
Yeah. How did the Lord help you after Scott passed away?
He helped me by recognizing his goodness.
Mm.
Because when you lose your parents or your grandparents, that's a normal process. That's life as it goes. But when you've lost children, it's more difficult in a way because that's not normal.
Yeah.
So I had to fight within myself and rely upon the Lord heavily to understand God's sovereignty, his total control, and then trust that he's good. That's how I got through it.
Yeah.
Is relying upon the realization of God's sovereignty and his goodness.
I just lost my brother this year.
Right.
I don't know how you get through without trusting in the sovereignty of God, because what's the alternative?
To me, there's none. You would go crazy. I mean, honestly, I know that's a trite word to go crazy, but you would grieve so much without any hope.
Right.
You would have nothing.
Yeah.
You know.
It talks about in 1 Thessalonians 4 that we don't grieve as people without hope.
Right. That's true.
And Scott knew the Lord. And so there's a hope that he's away from addiction and pain and all those other things. I don't know how you do it without the sovereignty of God.
No, absolutely not.
So what is Jesus currently teaching you?
That I need to be in his place where he wants me, when he wants me, and I need to respond positively.
Mm-hmm.
He's teaching me that when I serve, I can't get wrapped up in all this culture stuff because I'm from a different era. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I sometimes have to step back and say, okay, God, it's just up to you. I'm saved. I know where I'm going. So all this other stuff is just fluff. Mm-hmm. It's just fluff. I cannot become wrapped up in that. Only the fact is to be able to share Christ with those, be able to serve my church here, be able to serve my family, and be where God wants me to be at. Because where he's at is where I want to be at.
Yeah.
You know.
So we'll go on to the fun question.
Okay, fun. All right.
Fun question. Here's a good way to segue into that.
Okay.
People don't know that you have a hidden talent.
Yes.
That you are the voice of Cubby Bear.
I am the voice of Cubby Bear.
Yeah. And
he's a little friend of mine.
Yeah.
He's a friend of mine.
Could you give us a little sample of Cubby Bear on the podcast?
Hello, Cubbies. It's Mr. and Fred here with Master. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to say. I have to have a script. Lovey Lamb was over there in the corner laughing at me. Oh, boys and girls, it's so good to see you right now. Just think, tonight is Awana's. It's Cubby's night tonight. Oh, boy.
For those who don't know, Cubby is our 3 and 4 year old group, and Cubby Bear is our mascot, and we do a puppet show with our 3 and 4 year olds, and Fred is very faithful. So this is going to be an age check here.
Okay.
What is the first concert you ever attended?
Oh, the first concert that was ever attended was a Barry Manilow concert.
Barry Manilow?
Yes, sweet, smooth, silky voice, Barry Manilow. Although he was really old at the time. let me put that in there because he was old.
Copacabana?
Yeah, Copacabana. Lynn and I, my kids got us tickets, and normally we'd go to places like the Quartet Convention in Louisville. I'm afraid that I am a 4-part harmony gospel quartet person. I'm sorry. I grew up that way.
What is the worst food ever? And don't say Linda's cooking.
No. She's a great cook. No, I would never say that. Oh, no. I think that probably because of the texture, and I know I'm a farm boy from way back, but boiled okra.
Okra. It's slimy.
It's so slimy, and just I cannot overcome that.
Yeah. Now I do like fried okra.
Fried okra's great.
Yeah.
You can cut it up right.
Yeah.
If you boil okra and you try to eat that, I'm sorry, folks. That's it.
Yeah. I think collard greens is in the same variety.
I can handle collard greens. This isn't kind of like spinach, too bad, and turnips, and
turn into Popeye. Who is someone that you miss?
My son. I miss him the most.
Yeah.
I miss grandparents. I miss my dad, even though we didn't have a great relationship. But that has all been wiped clean. After his death, I had to get that settled. But I guess I would miss my son the most right now. If something else happened, I might miss a dog or two.
Let's talk about that, because I don't think that's brought up. You guys are dog lovers, right?
Yes, we foster dogs, and I'm a failed foster because every foster I get, I keep.
That defeats the purpose of fostering.
It does. It really kills it.
How many dogs do you have right now?
Right now, I've got 3.
Okay.
I've had as much as 4, 5, but we've got 3. Got a couple of big old mixes, and Barney and Rocky. And then I've got a little collie mix lab named Serenity. She's about 13.
Mm-hmm.
So our house has always had dogs, and we rescue them, and then I fall in love, and then I can't get rid of them because I'm a softie.
What profession would you like to try other than being retired or working at Keebler?
Oh, stand-up comedian. I guess I know.
I think you could do that.
I know. I loved my job with Keebler. I thought about, when I read that question, I thought, how about pastor? No, I thought no, because you guys have it so hard. You really
People have no idea.
You have it. I do. I got a little bit of an idea.
What do you do to relax?
Oh, what I do, I clean the house.
Really?
Yeah, I love cleaning the house. I vacuum. I do the dishes. I shouldn't say this because I don't want to put anybody in a position where they're going to oh, that's a lie. No, it's true. I like to see the finished product. I also like to read. Mm-hmm. I start a lot of books. You notice I said I start a lot of books.
You're not a finisher.
Not quite a finisher. I start a lot of books.
You catch it when the movie comes out.
I like history, presidential history, things of that nature, history of anything, cowboys, anything, just history-wise.
If you were a very hardcore cleaner, did that drive your wife or your kids crazy growing up?
It did. Yes, it does.
It still does.
Yeah.
Are you tempted to go over to other people's houses and clean?
I have been known to do that. But, I do things like when I start, I'll clean on top of the windowsills, top of the door frames.
What is your favorite music album or your favorite?
Oh, wow. I've got one album that I will not get rid of. Mm-hmm. It was called Candyman. Now, it may not be a spiritual.
Okay. That's okay.
It's called Candyman. It was by Paul Sykes.
Okay.
He was in like a concert or whatever, and it was a recording off his concert. And every Sunday morning when my kids were little and growing up, I used to have this old Zenith record player, this big long monster. And it opened it up, and I put that album on, and I'd play that, and I'd do songs, and I'd do voices for the kids, and they'd dance on my feet, and we'd just sing these crazy songs, and they were the voices. I would do the voices that he would do. And that was my favorite album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not because of the music, but because of the memories.
Oh, it's the memories, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some of the pretty fun lyrics.
Is it the old song, The Candyman Can?
No, it's not Sammy Davis Jr. Tom.
Not Sammy Davis
No,
Jr.
it's completely different.
What is your favorite dessert?
Man, I love pie.
What's your favorite pie?
Apple.
Oh, okay. So you're a fruit pie person.
Fruit pie, yes. I also like cheesecake. I don't like cake per se. Birthday cakes, it's just terrible for me.
I like pecan pie.
Pecan pie is great.
Yeah.
Chess pie, custard pie.
One last question.
All right.
Where's the best place to get pie here in Evansville?
Oh, gosh. Pie Pan's great. There used to be a pie shop just off Oak Hill right beside my cleaners.
Mm-hmm. That place was great.
And that place had a great pies.
Yeah.
And it's closed now. Don't know why, but it's just one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I don't really know where to get a pie. If anybody's out there can recommend a pie place.
Or just bring you pie.
Just bring me pie, yeah.
All right, if you're listening to this podcast, this is a good way to close. If you know of a good place to get pie, please tell Fred Harris.
Yes.
And even better, bring him pie. And I'm sure Linda would appreciate it so much. See you later, guys. Thanks for tuning in to the Northwoods Church Matters podcast. If you'd like to find out more about Northwoods Church, you can visit us at our website, www.northwoodschurch.org. Again, that's www.northwoodschurch.org.